Welcome to episode number 84 of the Between Two Brands podcast. I am still your host, 84 episodes into this thing, and they keep me around. My name is Bill Petrie, and I want to thank you, as always, for joining me on what I hope is going to be a great podcast. I think we have a really great guest, an inspirational guest today, so looking forward to getting to that. But before we even start off, you know what we have to do? Got to pay the rent here. Hey, in 2026, in any year, your clients are looking for more than just a product with their logo on it. They're looking for rock solid merchandise solutions that are more than just innovative. They're going to be used for months and hopefully years to come. Now, let me introduce you, and maybe in some cases reintroduce you, to our good pals over at Coaster Stone. They are the original manufacturer of the absorbent stone coaster, and they have unmatched durability, quality, and absolutely stunningly gorgeous edge-to-edge decorating that allow your creative designs to come to life in vibrant full color detail. Now, since 1983, Coaster Stone has set the standard when it comes to delivering a retail-inspired experience to any client function. Instead of boring and plain packaging, who wants that? How about packaging options that are customizable? Coaster Stone delivers value far beyond the actual product itself. And did you know they manufacture their pinback buttons right here in the USA? Well, they do, and they're an ideal, cost-effective, and fun piece of branded merchandise for just about any sort of event. Now, with that combination of stone-cold quality, striking decoration, cost per impression, and unmatched value, David Glenn and his team are ready to help you make a rock solid impression with your clients. Email them at promo@coasterstone.com to start your next project today. All right. So I'm kind of now in the habit of recording these about 2 to 3 weeks out. It's really just helping me with my time management, helping me with my time management. So I was going to be redundant there, but let's just not. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I think we're still going to be talking about it when this drops on, I think, August 21st, is right now there's this discussion about the Promotional Products Association International, PPAI, kind of looking at, it seems like they're looking at a name change to branded merch. And I have some thoughts on that. So I want to start off, most importantly, I love what Drew Holmgreen is doing. I love what the team at PPAI is doing. I love the brand refresh. I love what Melissa Ralston had to say when she was on the podcast a few weeks ago. I am all for everything that they're doing. That being said, I do want to talk about this thing, the phrase promotional products versus branded merch, because that seems to be where it's all centered. Now, this is from my understanding, and again, I reserve the right to be wrong. So all of this is based on what I believe I know. It's part of the PPAI brand refresh, or maybe it's a full rebrand. I'm not sure. And what started this off, at least in my mind, that the potential name change is becoming a reality, is when Lisa Bennett changed the name from the Promotional Products Professionals page on Facebook to PPP/branded merchandise professionals. And that got some coverage in PPAI, and Drew Holmgreen talked about the move, his goal to move from promotional products, the phrase promotional products, to branded merch. And so from where I'm sitting, or standing as the case might be, it seems to be an enormous focus for leadership at PPAI. However, I'm not sure a name change for the association is in order. In my mind, the phrase promotional products is not pejorative. It doesn't have a negative connotation to it like swag did. I was against swag from day one. Trinkets and trash, tchotchkes, all those things, those are negative connotations. I don't feel promotional products has that negative connotation. Is it matter of fact? Yes. Is it dated? Perhaps. I think you can make that argument. But I will tell you, I've used the phrase branded merchandise for the last 20 years. I don't love branded merch. To me, that shortening of merchandise to merch feels just as trendy as swag did in 2015. I can get on board with this if we're going to call it branded merchandise, but it seems to be this movement to shorten it up to branded merch. And I think just like we look back and see the word swag and feel like, ooh, boy, that's dated and that cheapens the industry. I always felt it did. I feel like the phrase merch confuses the industry. When I think of merch, I think of band merch. I think of when I go to see a show and I want a t-shirt, that's merch. Branded merch doesn't work for me. I think branded merchandise is what we do. There's elegance to that. And there is, to me, it's a great talking point for anybody who's a distributor, a supplier, or even a service provider in the industry. I don't think that our association needs to change the name, mainly because the initials are really problematic. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of BMAI. I have a lot of jokes there, none of which I'm really going to share. So whether you call Branded Merchandise Association International or brand or let's try that again. Had a little hiccup on the microphone there. Hit the mute button on accident, so had a little hiccup. Anyway, what I was saying is, whether it's Branded Merch Association International or Branded Merchandise Association International, I don't love the BM part of it. I think you can make your own joke there. And then I thought about the cost. A full rebrand, especially given the signage at headquarters in Irving and Expo, is going to be astronomical. Like I said, I really applaud what Drew and his team are doing. So this is not a criticism. This is just thoughts from a dues-paying member. I think the rebrand is forward-thinking. I think the colors are strong. I think the messaging is on point. That powering lasting connections as a tagline is phenomenal. I love all of it. At the same time, I'm wondering if that's enough right now, and more important should be placed on things like building on the inroads that have been made for the efficacy of branded merchandise as an advertising medium. I think we've made great inroads. That started with Paul Bellantone when he was a president and CEO of PPAI, and I think Drew is building on that and doing a great job. How about deeper advocacy through the Government Relations Action Committee or Advisory Committee and our lobbying partners to make sure that the small businesses that really comprise this industry are protected. So I think that's important too. And maybe reimagining or enhancing the Expo experience. I will say that the folks who run Expo, starting with Ellen Tucker and her team, do a phenomenal job. That is the standard of events in our industry. That being said, I know there's people who want something new and fresh every year. And that's something I know Ellen and her team work on. How can we enhance this? How can we make it better? How can we elevate this whole experience so that it's something that really helps people catapult and jumpstart their year? Maybe some more focus on that. Honestly, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not sure. I think if we want to use the phrase branded merchandise, and if you really want branded merch internally with our clients, that's great. I'm not sure a full rebrand for PPAI makes sense right now. But again, these are just my thoughts as a dues paying member. And I don't pretend to know it all because gosh darn it, I do not. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear. You can drop in the comments. You can do whatever you want, however you want to share it. All right, that's enough of the opening shot. Let's go ahead and pay one more bill as we kind of barrel through our podcast today. Hey, do you know what season it is? It's hot as hell here in Tennessee, I'll tell you that. But you know what else? It's business valuation season. Now, maybe you don't know what your company's worth. Maybe it's been more than a few years since your last valuation, and you need a new benchmark to see if your company is increasing in value. You know what? You may just want to see if it's time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and her team over at Certified Marketing Consultants, they have extensive experience in the world of branded merchandise and the financial knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your business. All you need to do is email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, that's enough of me. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Hey, my guest today, he doesn't need an introduction. He's an industry legend. But you know what? We're going to waste some of his time, your time, and my time and introduce him anyway. He originally started in the golf business working for Cleveland Golf, and then he found the promotional products industry by accident trying to fulfill an order for a tournament that his company couldn't do. And he's been a fixture for over 20 years. Now, he spent most of his time at apparel companies like Vantage, Ash City, Sanmar, Charles River. But then he opened a distributorship a few years ago. Around the same time, he was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. He transitioned that distributorship into a consulting company working for Vapor Apparel and StickerYou. In fact, StickerYou loved him so much, They hired him as their VP of sales, where he is today loving life. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Rich Corvalan. Rich, thank you again for doing
Wow,
this.
that's an introduction that I wish I could use that as my screensaver. That was amazing. I've never been
Well,
called a legend or a legend in my own mind.
you know what? Just say thank you and let's move on. Seriously,
Thank you.
I mean it. I mean it. All right. I love starting off a lot of these podcasts, really understanding people's industry journey. And yours is a very interesting one because you said you found this industry by accident while you were working at Cleveland Golf and they couldn't fulfill an order. How did you go from simply sourcing product, or in that case, trying to source product, to becoming a supplier rep?
Well, I was with Cleveland Golf and I was working on these tournaments that we basically did shopping sprees. And we'd give out gift cards to all the attendees rather than just giving a pair of shoes or a shirt. They got to choose what they wanted and they loved it. The issue was we were doing the 50th anniversary for one of the big hospital networks, and there was 500 people playing in this event. So we needed a ton of shirts. And Cleveland said, no problem. We've got all the shirts. We just don't have any larges. So someone introduced me, yeah, someone introduced me to Van. They ended up making Cleveland Golf shirts with the labels in the neckline, Cleveland Golf on the front, and got them for a great price. So that was my introduction to the promo world. I had always been told, stay away from ASI, stay away from ASI. The golf business didn't want anything to do with it. Well, I found Vantage, and then I became a customer of Vantage. I started buying from them, and then their VP of sales got to know me and said, "Well, why don't you take the line as a multi-line in the golf business?" So I introduced Vantage right in the backyard where I was living in New Jersey, and that's how it all began. And then Cleveland Golf was being sold, and
Yeah.
I noticed that Vantage was hiring a regional manager. So Ira
That,
and I started talking, and
yeah.
the rest is history.
Yeah, natural fit. So then you worked, I know, like I said, at Advantage. You've been at Ash City. I remember that's one
Mhm.
of the lines I loved when I first got in this industry, older, longer than you,
Great
and
company.
Charles River and all that. What made you decide to start a distributorship? And the reason I ask is I remember when you were launching, and I think it was Paradise, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
Paradise Promotional.
Um, in Vegas a couple years ago, 3 years ago or so, when you're really like, this is my launch time and all that. What made you start that distributorship?
Well, quite honestly, I was working for Zing Manufacturing and
Okay.
things changed. They hired some new management. And so I was kind of being shown the door, to be quite honest. And
I,
I
I
said, well,
always say, I always say I was asked to pursue career excellence elsewhere.
well, you know what, as supplier and manufacturer people and reps, we've all talked about it. We said, oh, I could do that. If that person's doing it, I could do it. Well,
Sure.
boy, was that, I mean, it was a different world. But
Yeah.
you know, when I left there, I decided that, you know, this is something I want to do. But I had just been diagnosed with a first bout of cancer, which I don't even think you know about. I had a four
No,
and a
you had a
half pound
tumor. I do, because we're going to talk
Yes.
about that. You had a tumor in your
Yep.
leg. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So I had the surgery, recovered very easily, and so I started this distributorship. And I will tell you, Bill, I was so overwhelmed by the support of all of my distributor and supplier friends. So I started this journey and I learned so much about what the distributors do. I wasn't successful at it, quite honestly. I had no book of business, and it was very daunting. But I learned so much during that part of my journey, and that will always, it'll bring a smile to my face. I didn't make any money, thank goodness. My wife's a great painter, but honestly, it was such an amazing experience. And but you know, I know we're going to talk relationships, but I will tell
Yeah.
you what brought forth more than anything. One, it's very hard to start a business with no book of business, no real relationships on the end user side. But what was the most compelling thing to me, which I will take to my grave one day, is the friendships that stood out. My biggest fear going into it was that I was going to lose all of the relationships I had with distributors. They were my friends, and now I was competition in my mind anyway. But I had more people reaching out and mentor me in that side. What can I do? I mean, people that I would never even imagine, local people, national people. They said, "What can I do?" I'll never forget. I went my first trade show. A VP of sales, which I'll at Halo, actually said, "I know you're not making any money now. Why don't you jump in my cab?"
Mhm.
And it was amazing. And that was my very first show walking around. Ironically, the next year, while I was still trying to do it, I had been diagnosed. But ironically, the first day of that show was my last day of radiation treatment, and I actually finished treatment at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Caught a 3 o'clock flight to Vegas. I was glowing more than
Sure.
anything on the Vegas Strip. But it just I wanted to try it, and it did not work well for me. Again, things happened that kind of slowed my progress down. But I also had a family to feed, and
Of
without any
course.
income coming in, I had to readjust.
100%. And you talk about relationships. We're going to get into that in a second. When I started Brandivate, and I started Brandivate in July of 2020. So kind of the height of the pandemic, not the smartest time to start a business, but the outpouring of support I had from both the supplier side and the distributor side, and even the service provider side, was overwhelming. So just what you were describing made me kind of in my mind as I was listening to you relive all that. So you have always placed a premium on relationships. And Barry Lipset of Charles River, who I know you know very well, legend
Yes.
over there, he said this: Rich is the best relationship guy and has more genuine relationships in the promotional products industry than anyone I know. Now, that's really high praise. What I want to know from you, in this era that we're in right now of fast technology, AI, why do relationships still win in this industry?
Because it's that connection. And you're right about AI, and actually I'm using AI in those relationships, but because they're everything, Bill. It's what we do every single day. And yes, a lot of people want to use e-commerce ways and where they don't have to talk to somebody, but there's still so much human compassion. And when an order goes wrong, you want somebody on the phone. When an order goes right, you want somebody on the phone. But
Yeah.
again, those relationships, my mentor in this business was Fran Ford. There was
You
no
and
better relation.
me and a
Well,
thousand other people, right? I mean, he was
well,
that
I
guy.
didn't know that until his funeral, because
Yeah.
quite honestly, he made all of us feel like we were the only one. And I'll
Hmm.
never forget it. He worked for Vantage when I started there, and on day one, he put his arm around me. We were going to ASI Orlando, and he said, "I will introduce you to everyone in this industry." And to the day that man died, he did. He'd call me once a week and just say, "What can I do? Who are you having trouble with? Who can I reach out for?" And I swore when he died, I was going to do that for other people. And I have done that, whether they're competitors. And another crazy story. It was my very first trade show. It was back when Embroidery was Embroidery and still fully
Hmm.
promoted. Their first show that I did, my display, I was apparel. We had a spider rack. It exploded. It literally started. Parts were flying everywhere. Greg Brown came up to me, and he was with Alpha Broder at the time, and he said, "I got another one in the car. Hold on, I'll be right back." And I said to him, I said,
Yeah.
"Wait, I'm a competitor. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He said, "We're all travel these roads together. We're all family. We look out for each other." And to this day, every time I see Greg, I give him a hug,
Yeah.
because without him, I would have suffered that show big time.
Oh, I love that answer. I mentioned in the intro, and you touched on as well, that you were diagnosed with cancer, specifically colon
Yeah.
cancer, a few years ago, and we're going to get into that in a second. But your first battle with cancer, you had a large tumor in your leg. Talk about
Yes.
that. How did you find that? You said it was a for in the, I don't think any cancer recovery is easy, for lack of a better term, but you said that was, for lack of a better term, it was easy.
Right. Well, I took my daughter to the orthopedic because I had gone to a dermatologist. He said it was a lipoma. Eventually it'd have to come out. But I took my daughter to an orthopedic doctor for her knee. So he's checking her out, and she says, "Oh, by the way, my wrist hurts too." So he laughed. He said, "You have anything else you want me to check out?" Well, I said, "Well, take a look at this." And
Yeah.
he said, "All right, Paige, you're going to be fine. You're coming back tomorrow. We're getting you in an MRI at 10 o'clock in the morning." He said, that's not normal. So by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he had called me and said, "I have an appointment for you with the top surgeon at MUSC in Charleston, South Carolina."
Hmm.
He said, it's not good. By that Monday, I was in Dr. Letty's office, and he said it is cancer, but it's encapsulated, but it needs to come out. So 2 weeks later, the surgery was scheduled. They took a 4.5 pound tumor out of my leg,
Wow.
sewed
That's
me
not a
up
great way to
from
lose weight.
no, no, but I had started playing pickleball at that
Yep.
point, and I was losing weight anyway. But
Yeah.
they sewed me from the back of my knee to the bottom of my gluteus maximus, we'll call it that.
Right.
Um, and I will tell you, 6 days later, I was back on the pickleball court. The
Yeah.
doctor, I went for my 2 week checkup. He said, "All right, it's looking good. You could start hitting a ball." And my wife almost choked. She started laughing. He
Yeah.
said, "He's already back out there, isn't he?" And so I said, yes, I'm starting to play. Everyone's yelling at me, but
Right.
that's the way I'm going to heal.
Well,
I'm not doing anything crazy.
expand on that. So we'll get back to the colon cancer in a minute because I
Yeah.
know you're a big advocate for early detection. I do want to go back, but I'm going to jump
Yes.
ahead for a second. Anyone going through any sort of major health issue has to have a big support system, and yours was pickleball. You just mentioned it.
Yes.
How did that group help you in your health journey?
They were everything. My family was there, but again, it when I started playing pickleball, I met this group of people, and we call us the core four, and we've gone from place to place, and they were so amazing. When they found out, they were freaked out. My one friend, who's an attorney, who is the calmest, he will fight for everybody. He lost his mind. He didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
and we were so close, but they rallied. They rallied around me. When I started, when they found out, and I kept playing pickleball, in the entire journey, I missed a total of 3 days in pickleball.
Wow.
Once they realized it was me, and it was just going to be me, and I wanted to do this, at first everyone was very cautious and didn't hit the ball to me or whatever instead of at me. But then they realized this is me and this is part of the journey. And they treated me just as they would treat anybody else. But after it was all done, they were calling me to check on me and see if I needed any meals brought over. But they rallied. And then there's such a bigger community. It was truly amazing. When I'd show up, it was just normal. It was normal pickleball, and that's what I needed because when you're at home, of course your family is going to do anything they can and look at you differently, quite honestly.
Sure.
And but pickleball, one, the movement, the exercise I mean, I lost before the cancer, I lost 35 pounds playing pickleball.
That's
And
fantastic.
I play, now I play every day from 6 to 8 in the morning. Back then I was playing from 7 to 8:30 because I had to be back in my office for Barry at 9. But it's an amazing way, one, to meet people because we had been in Charleston probably at that point 2.5 years, and we had friends, but this created such a network of people,
Sure.
of friends that, whether it's dinners, whether it's just get-togethers, that to me is what life is about. And
Yeah.
they were everything to me. Still are.
Love that. Love that. And I did want to touch on again, you after you got the tumor out of your leg, you were diagnosed a year or so later with colon cancer, and that's made
Yeah.
you so proactive about the importance of colonoscopies and early detection. You want to talk
Yes.
about that?
Well, I do, and there's an unfortunate statistic that's recently come out. Colorectal cancer is the number one killer of men now. That's the number one cancer, and so they've actually lowered the age now. I believe it's 45,
I think
and
that's what my understanding it is. Yeah,
right.
45.
And fortunately, in Charleston, my second opinion, we went for the first opinion at MUSC, and my wife and all of our friends said, you need to go for a second opinion. Well, the second opinion happened to be the number two colorectal surgeon in the world. He
Hmm.
goes around the world teaching. Dr. Lagares Garcia teaches all his surgery to doctors around the world. And ironically, he was late, and anyone that knows me, patience has never been my strong suit. He was late for the appointment, so he walked in, and I said, "Well, you can't even make an appointment on time. Why would I choose you over anyone?" And he looked at me dead in the eye and said, "Because I'm going to save your life."
Oh,
And
there
I
you
went,
go.
sold.
Yeah.
And to this day, we laugh. He said to me, no one's ever asked me that question, and I've never answered that question. That way, I don't know if I could ever do it. But he said, you needed it. And that man did everything, his staff, the care, but early detection. I mean, I honestly, after a Memorial Day party, we had a ton of people at the house. I started feeling different, and things were happening different, quite honestly, in the bathroom. And
Sure.
I knew, I knew myself. I had my gallbladder out, 20 years ago. So I knew things were different anyway, but things started changing and I knew something was off. And I hadn't had my colonoscopy like I should. I was 52 at that point. So I was 2 years past. And I regret that because it had been growing for at least that. And
Yeah.
had I done that, I wouldn't have had to go through everything that I did.
Yeah, no, and glad everything worked out. Certainly, I remember. I don't know if you remember Brian Jolin, a distributor down in Texas. He got colon cancer and did not get his colonoscopy like he should have, and did make it. But
Yeah.
near the end of his life, and I've become pretty close to his widow, his wife, and all that. And near the end of his life, he was such an advocate of get your damn colonoscopy. It made me get it. I'm
Yeah.
56 now, and I got mine at 51. I waited a little longer because I didn't want to do it. Being very candid, now I'm like very regimented about making sure I get those colonoscopies because that early detection is everything. So appreciate you sharing your story.
It's the best sleep. It's the best sleep you'll have.
Yeah,
It's
but it
great.
only lasts like blinking an eye. I
I
mean, it's
know.
that's
I
so,
know.
I understand why Michael Jackson loved his propofol. So let's lighten things up a little bit. You've been in
Yep.
this industry a long time and you've seen a ton of change. I want you to get your crystal ball out. I'm sure you packed it. You're in Las Vegas today. I want to know, let's start with I want to start not negative, but what changes that are you seeing that make you concerned about the future of our industry?
The concerns I have are with all the consolidation. Quite honestly, there's so much of it from the supplier side, from the distributor side. You see it all the time, companies buying companies.
Sure.
And that's what's a little bit scary because, quite honestly, I love the diversity in our industry. I love the choices that you would have, the relationships that you can build. And you know what? Not everybody can deliver everything at every time. Now you see all these companies that are just taking on, they're becoming, unfortunately, the Amazon of the promotional world. And there's so much control in it, it really takes away the choice,
Yeah.
and new people can't compete necessarily on that front. And that scares me because this
Yeah.
industry is about growth. It's about adding new people, new blood, to our industry.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would even expand on that. What concerns me is the consolidation, but what happens after? It's like what we're seeing in a lot of areas of our life, the erosion of the middle class. There's the haves and there's the have-nots, and
Yes.
there are a lot of quote unquote have-nots that can be niche organizations and do great things. I think StickerYou is one of them. You do a couple things, but you do them very, very well, and that's a compliment to StickerYou. But at the same time, it's hard to compete against a conglomerate that does $1 billion that might offer stickers, and that's challenging. I'm sure. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's my observation. So I hate that erosion of the middle class.
It's true. And
Yeah.
even in that niche world, these bigger companies are
Yep.
starting to jump into it because they see the opportunity,
Yeah.
and who knows where it's going to go from there.
Agreed. Okay, let's end on a positive note, Rich. What changes do you hope to see in the future? What excites you about the future?
Well, I will tell you, I know AI can be in both sides of the category, positive and negative. I find it so positive. I will tell you, Bill, I've used AI now for over a year, and I'm having more fun with it because my brain is creative, but that's where it ends. These hands cannot create something. They cannot draw anything. I come from
Mhm.
my family are all artists, but I couldn't do anything. But AI has helped me translate what's here to what's on the screen or what's on the piece of paper or what's on a sticker. and
Mhm.
and I'm having more fun with that. And we have an amazing art team, but they're so bogged down with everything else that all of a sudden now I'm able to create things. And yes, they've got to fine tune it and they've got to take it
Sure.
and tweak it and make it printable.
Vector, get
But
a vector,
right. But
vectorize it.
honestly, that's where, and people that embrace it, and that's one of the things that I've done. I've had one-on-one meetings with distributors where I'll pull up an AI, I'll just say it, Chat GBT, or as my wife calls him, Chad, my assistant.
Right.
Um, but that, and we go through it, and I've had distributors that all of a sudden will call me on a Friday appointment. They'll call me Monday and said, "You ruined my weekend." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, because I signed up, and that's all I've been doing is
Yeah.
messing around with different logos." I think it's going to take it to another level, and it's only getting stronger and stronger. And those that embrace it, I think, will be better off for it.
Agreed. I was very much an early adopter of AI. I use it every day for what I do. And obviously, I don't have a product, I have services. And so I train a specific GPT for every client when I onboard them. I spend 2 to 3 hours talking about what their brand voice is, what phrases we should use, what we shouldn't use, all those type of things. And it helps me from an ideation perspective. I still do all the work. I do all the writing and all
Right.
that, but it does as a solopreneur, it's helped me out a lot. And the other part I love about AI for me is the automation aspect of it. It takes all the shit I hate doing about running a business and it, for the most part, does it for me. And so it makes me, frees up time, and it allows me to actually focus on the things, I think I'm better at, and things I enjoy, which is the creative aspect of it. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'm making these industry stickers as giveaways. It's so much fun because it's poking fun at end users. And we had a line in Chicago, 3 booths deep, just to pick up
Great.
samples.
That's
And it's
great.
stuff that I'm creating with AI. It's been so much fun.
I love it. Love it. Rich, that's all I had. Do you have anything you want to talk about before I wrap this up?
No, just you know what, the I'll go back to say this industry is a huge industry. It's a 25, $26 billion industry, but these relationships that we are building every single day, that hug, that handshake, that fist pump, that means everything. And to me, I just want to say thank you to the industry because quite honestly, I wouldn't have made it this far without those friendships, those relationships that drive to have some fun in what we do. So
Love
that's
it.
it. And thank you for having me. It means the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Thank you. And before I say goodbye officially, let's thank our sponsor. This episode of Between Two Brands has been brought to you by the good folks over at Coaster Stone, home of the original absorbent stone coaster. With that combination of stone cold quality, striking decoration, low cost per impression, retail packaging, and unmatched value, David Glenn and his team at Coaster Stone are ready to help you make a rock solid impression with your clients. Go ahead and email them at promo@coasterstone.com today. Rich, always great to see you. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for being honest and vulnerable. I know it's not easy to do, but dang it, really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Thanks, Bill. You do amazing work. Thank you.
Appreciate it.